Okay, I'm back. I'm sort of alive. Kinda. Finally got bit by a bad kitchen last night. Holy cow. And you know, it's funny when we were waiting for a meal. We ate there before. Real good food. Authentic Thai food, but you never know what's going on in the kitchen when it comes to washing the dishes. And I remember a few years ago, we were on this island, and I noticed some guy, a Thai guy, was in the bathroom throwing up. And there's another woman there, and they worked at the restaurant we were waiting for food from, an outdoor concept, you know, barbecue charcoal pit to cook the fresh fish, and they did all the rice and everything on the inside of this kitchen. And she walked him out of the kitchen area and into this bathroom. You could tell he was honking. And then he went back into where they're making food, and I'm like, we're seeing that from the distance, thinking to myself, huh? Did I just see that? And of course, ate the food, and both Sarah and I went down hard. And then what happened? Then another time, I had something similar happen, and I remember looking over and thinking, oh, he was getting this fresh-made sushi, but I noticed the woman was really sweating. I'm like, I wonder if she's sick right now. Maybe I shouldn't be eating here. What did I do? I ate it. I got sick. A couple years later. And then we were at this place last night, and really busy. Good, great food. And we're sitting there, and as we're sitting waiting for a meal, I glanced over, and I just saw through a hole in the door, there was a guy hand washing forks and plates in a basin full of water. And I remember thinking to myself, huh? That's not good. And what happened? I got the unlucky draw, and I was literally wrapped around the toilet last night until 4 a.m. Ugh. Spinning like a helicopter on the toilet. Face in the toilet, butt on the toilet seat. Face in the toilet, butt in the toilet seat. Oh my God, that sucks. So anyway, lost a day of life. I'm getting better now. I can finally eat some stuff. Sarah wanted to do her big hike around or walk around the lake and shit and get some food, but I figured it'd be safer if I stayed in here until tomorrow. So what is 5 o'clock my time? I slept a good chunk of today, but anyway, let's hear some emails, shall we? From possibly one of the largest groups of sane people on the planet. People here. Now, this email is titled Mind Sound and a Possible Experience. Hey, Steve, sent you a story on January 7th, 2023 that I haven't heard shared yet. But the reason I'm sending you this note is my experience was extremely similar to Cody Coon's you read yesterday. The title of the story is in the subject line to make it easier to search. Keep the truth coming. Sincerely, Jerry Wilson. You know what? I'm going to go look for that right now. Okay, I found it. I went in the inbox and I searched and I found it. And it's not read. It wasn't copied around, so here we go. Hello, Steve. I want to take a quick second to commend you on your work to help the people. Many people who have had face-to-face or visual encounters that have left them in a state of disarray, and I'm sure many more have had just an odd encounter, something they just can't logically explain. My experience falls into the latter category, and nonetheless, thank you for bringing everyone together in a safe place where they might find answers or some understanding of what they experienced. Okay, man, too easy. Thanks for the kind words. I drive tractor trailers all over the road, and during the winter, sometime between December 2020 and February 2021, I was traveling on Interstate 87 through Adirondack Park in northeast New York State. It was about 2 a.m. in the morning, about 20 degrees Celsius, and I was in an area that seemed no one was around for 20 miles or so. The traffic that night was very light. I saw a car or truck every few minutes. I couldn't see any lights from houses or anything. And I'm not from the area, but it seemed to be very rural, or even pretty remote in that area. It was not snowing this night, but it had recently. Everything was covered in probably 2 to 3 feet of snow when it was close to a full moon. It was a clear night, and very bright from the moonlight reflecting off the snow. I was traveling along an area where there was a large median between the north and south lanes. And as I came around a bend, I saw an object flying through the air towards a truck. We just read this. Damn, man. We just read this like a few days ago. All right. There we go. Yeah, well, it was read a few days ago. All right, next. This is titled Cedar Trees. Hi again, Steve. Jana Borba here, up Lone Creek Road, Williams, Oregon, where I've seen the most Sasquatch sightings. This site is behind a BLM locked gate, cedar tree forest. And why is it gated? I have no idea. They say to protect the cedar trees. I just lost my spot. We were on a logging site as watchmen. Even the owner of the logging site had photos of a huge being. Let me read that again. Even the owner of the logging site had photos of a huge being. And get this, it was smiling at him. Also had photos of large madrona trees wedged high up lengthwise in other trees. Didn't notice any bark missing, but back then didn't really look. We did take lots of them, beautiful pieces, which I made jewelry out of. Also, site where all sounds stopped, even the sound of our loud predator generator. Large footprints crashing through the trees, dogs cowered. We could feel their presence. Found large structures and paths that looked like they were swept with a broom. Lots of bear, but no deer whatsoever in that area. What's up with that? This logging site is back side of Oregon Caves. Thanks for listening. Share. Stay safe. Jana Borba. Okay, Jana, I'm sure you know you just drove the audience absolutely insane by telling them this guy has a picture of a Sasquatch smiling at him with no photo. Maybe the dude would be interested in sharing it with the people. Me? Whatever. Won't make a difference for me. But I know there's a lot of people who want to see a photo. Even then, even if they shared the photo, nobody's going to believe it anyway. Okay, next. I've been surrounded my whole life. Hello, Steve and the Round Table of Knowledge family. God bless you all. I've struggled to write this email at least 4 times prior. My problem is I don't know where to start. April 2018 seems like the best place to start, though it's 3/4 of the way through my story. It's when I found out the mind speak I was experiencing came from a Sabe people. I just moved from a metropolitan area back to my roots and very rural community. In fact, this home I was staying was surrounded by 250 acres of pasture and trees. A main highway, 136, ran in front of the house, busy with semis hauling logs. Chinese-owned hog farms sprung up around here after the late 80s. Farm aid banks. After the late 80s, farm aid. Banks foreclosures put real people out and opened the doors to big business, foreign-owned livestock facilities, completely destroying all American farm families in at least a 200-mile area. That's sad to hear. Sorry, I can just say, don't get me started on what they've done to us. In this home, there was no television. The only form of entertainment that we had was an FM stereo, and we would listen to the local birthday show, the local trading post, the weather, and occasionally there'd be a country song on mostly for the news. If I listened to anything at all, no cable, no Wi-Fi, nothing digital whatsoever in this home. As I sat in the upper living room, the door opened, just the screen door. There was a porch that I would go out and sit on and watch the semis fly by. And as I sat in that living room reading the Old Testament of the Bible, I was reading a verse, and as I brought my arm up to take a drag off a cigarette, the words were loud in my head. Right in front of your face. And that's a quote. Right in front of your face, end quote. I instantly knew the meaning. I understood exactly what they were talking about. It was my cigarette. I needed to lay it down and walk away from it if I were to follow the instructions in the Word. Closing the book, standing up, and headed to the front door, I went out on my front porch and started looking up in the sky. You see, I had mind speak experience prior. That's what sent me into the woods. In fact, I had much more than just words in my head at a prior time. I was thinking, whoever was putting these words in my head, maybe they would be a drone outside in the sky, a plane flying over, because in my prior research of MindSpeak, the V2K technology had come to light. And that was the technology that runs off 5G or something. I don't know. It was used in Iraq against Iraqi forces. The voice-to-skull technology. An entire platoon heard, quote, the voice of Allah in their minds to surrender, end quote. Wow, that's That's interesting. I'm sure other sleuths in this community are already is aware of this technology. If it's not easy to find, just look it up. Okay, we don't have any punctuation at all, you guys, okay? Just so you know. Okay, so my eyes is scanning the sky. There's a maple tree that's approximately 6 feet away from the front deck that I was standing on the tree limbs. That I was standing under, you think he meant? And the tree limbs come up and over the porch. Some may have even touched the corner of the roof. I see in this tree, no more than 10 feet away from me, because it's up in the tree, the thing from the Predator movie. So you can see through it, but it's pixelated. It's like looking through triangle prisms, almost. It moved an arm, and oh, definitely I seen an arm. I followed that up, and I could see the head, and it was conical shaped. I seen another arm. They seemed along. It didn't move much. I'm thinking in my brain, what are you? And then as it took a step, like it was going to step down out of the tree onto the deck, for some reason, something allowed my mind to see this gigantic foot first. And I thought in my mind, wow, that's a large foot. It stepped through a portal, and the rest of the body followed. Just basically, it stepped out into the air, into a hole. I couldn't see the hole, but I know the thing disappeared immediately. My eyes went to the bounciness of the limb, just stepped off of. I looked on the ground at the tall grass to see if something just landed on the ground. I looked everywhere to see this thing. I could not see it. It flat out disappeared in the sky. Knowing what I know now by watching this channel, I only assume it stepped into a portal because I was watching for it everywhere. In fact, when it stepped and had that foot and leg not just completely disappeared, then the rest of its body disappeared. And I mean, I was frantically looking around like it should be standing right next to me, right? But it was not. It went through a portal. I found your channel, and the very first email that was read talked about the pixelated being. Wow, my mind was blown. That was a Sobe. That was a Bigfoot. And then I had to laugh out loud because what did they allow me to think in my mind right before it stepped through the portal? Wow, that's a large foot. Not thinking of the creature Bigfoot. So I believe that she was giving me a hint as to what she was. The very next email was written by a believer of Christ and of the Word, because the email had mentioned at the end, oh, and it's not the Holy Spirit. Wow, another puzzle piece. How great that is. For 2 years prior, when having these Mind Speak episodes, I had thought of everything, well, except Asabe. Yes, I had thought maybe it was the Holy Spirit, and I thought it was voice-to-skull technology. Not until the Holy Spirit, I'm going to say, brought me to your channel, because that's what happened. It was just put in my feed on YouTube. It's just amazing to see how this all works out. And where, if we will, just relax and follow Spirit Man, our answers are there now. I have so much more to tell you about my experiences. It's kind of different. It's not out in the woods, but I promise you, they can be standing in your house. Y'all and you don't even know it. That's what makes it scary. You know, something else while I was there in this home, where I seen her step through the portal, this female Sabe gave me these urges, these feelings of promiscuity, or of like sexual desire to the other occupant of that home, which is unacceptable. I wasn't falling for that. I mean, I guess she, the Sabe, either thought I needed a man to fit, or it was a test. I guess what I'm trying to say is that they very much have the power to manipulate your emotions, your feelings, your desires. They can, and they will. So if you get any type of emotions, feeling, or desire out of the blue, and all of a sudden just know there's something around you that is controlling that, and have a peace of mind to be on top of that, because they can do it. They can and do it. I have also, prior to 2018, have had them look through my eyes. I've had conversations, real conversations, thinking that they was more of a spiritual entity. I have no idea, Bigfoot. I know the male doesn't like us because we are dirty, a spiritual dirty. We don't respect Father as we should. We are ungrateful. We don't see Father as holy, and the fact causes the males great anxiety. and I detected jealousy in his voice when I asked him who and why he was jealous of. She, the female Sabe, done all the talking after that. In fact, I could hear her understand their conversation between themselves. I know it's not a lot of information. I probably didn't help anybody with their puzzle pieces, but I do have a lot more information to share. It's just so hard for me. I would a lot rather just talk to a human being instead of typing this. And okay, Steve, thanks for all you do. I love being a member of your channel. I love the idea that you're taking that money, you're feeding the children. You know I trust you. I trust Sarah to do what needs to be done with our monthly dues. Peace and Godspeed. Much love, your friend Rose. Okay, Rose, appreciate that. A bunch of punctuation missing, no big deal. I hope I didn't butcher it too much, but we got the gist of it for sure. Sounds interesting, and if you would like to email us back again one day and take your time, we'll be all over it. Give me a few more tidbits. We can take it from there. Now, a little bit on topic, but off topic. I had a funny thought the other day. I was remembering some conversations apparently these people have had with us, from people, and they're saying how it upsets them that their appearance scares the living shit out of us. And we've also heard another conversation. Somebody said that that the Sabe, the Sasquatch person, had said flat out, "You're not ready to see me yet," etc., etc. And you know what I was thinking? I mean, they do outclass us in many ways, right? And we somewhat outclass them in some other ways, like maybe with our own technology, which they don't use. But here's a funny thought. If that's the case, if the majority of these people are worried about us and how we react when we see them, the PTSD, the terror, the shock, the fright, well, why can't they just email us? You know what I mean? Or there's a funny thought. Just hang wait for a second. It's like, well, why can't you just use a dating app or something, and somebody can swipe you up and then have a few pictures of you on one of your better hair days? You know what I mean? Seriously, though, if that was an issue, and as people such as Richard Jameau and others have easily proven that they are observing and watch and know what's going on in your house, then they probably know about computers and emails by now, right? And wouldn't that be something else if all of a sudden they started communicating to us through our own technology? Wouldn't that be something else? Imagine that. All of a sudden I got an email that cracked up and said, "Steve, we decided that, we didn't want to scare the living shit out of you or any of your friends here by standing in front of you in the forest, so we thought we'd just ease you into it with a few photos of us right here. Check out the following." Right? It sounds funny, but in a way, with all the shit that they can do, why don't they do it? Why don't they do that? Okay, next. Regarding Sasquatch's behavioral issues. Comox Valley porch monkeys. Okay, that'll be the island. Vancouver Island. Hey, Steve, just had some thoughts about the behaviors of Sasquatch's fear. I've been in contact with these forest people for a couple of years in the Comox Valley. Wrote a few stories in, and recognized their behaviors regarding fear and neutral/playful behavior. We have to remember the forest people are part of the animal kingdom and have been genetically modified by who knows. Naturally, their instincts will be fear-based and the other half neutral-based. I notice that your fear reflects upon their own instincts, as they are good at mimicking us humans. If you are a non-feared person, that their behaviors will reflect upon their own abilities to be calm/playful and accepting. They also have the ability to mimic birds, whistles, laughter, moaning, growling, as I've heard it in the forest many times. They will toy with your dog on a leash and unfasten the leash without you knowing. They will dislike a dog if it's problematic, that poses as a threat, and that's your decision to tell them to leave your dog alone, revoking the Lord Jesus Christ. It might take a few times for them to get the message. There's the possibility that they shapeshift into nature as trees and stumps, as I've witnessed the male silhouette in a thick fir tree while he amplified growling and moaning noises, wondering if they're the creatures beyond Dogman, possibly part of genetic modification. There are great mimics of animals and people, and also shocking people, dogs with certain frequency. They have shocked the heck out of my dogs, and as they claim territory for their families, it's their way of ushering us out. Very freaky. In this case, it's a family of 3 that lives close to where we frequent, so sometimes they all interact at the same time. Another annoying behavior is when they look into your window at night, watching how the household lives. Very curious and annoying at the same time. My dogs always detect their presence and with growling at them. So I had to buy blinds and curtains for our home. I'm past the fear and they seem quieter and less active in our lives. I can still feel their presence and accept their existence and do not go looking for them, praying someday that someone can reach out with proof and the information that we are so entitled to after all the lies and misinformation that we grew up hearing. Thank you, as I said before, for Sarah and your supportive work. So many of us have been there and done it, but we'll never forget the feeling of these encounters. You may lose it for a while, but it does get better, and possibly they, the forest people, are here to help our kind. I can only speak from my many encounters. Life has a meaning now. We are our own reality and make what we want with it. Take what you want from this, maybe it'll help someone. Love from Bronwyn. Yes, you can use my name. All right, appreciate that email. Bold statements. We have to remember that forest people are part of the animal kingdom. I'd like to say allegedly, or maybe, or I feel that they might be. Do you know what I mean? Because we have a lot of testimony that proves otherwise, if you go by the patterns, right? But either way, thank you so much for sharing that email. Appreciate you big time. Keep us posted. Proof? The proof. We got the proof. We got the proof. It's just a matter of us kicking loose from that that mind space of thinking we need somebody to confirm something for us. That is so wrong, isn't it? It's so wrong. We got the proof. We just got to maintain it. What do we got here? This next email has no title, and here we go. Hey Steve, please just call me Mac. I truly enjoy your videos, and listening to them has caused me to throw away some self-delusion from many years ago from an experience involving both my father and me. To give you some idea of our credibility, my father and I are both Air Force veterans and are both currently federal civilians with clearances at the highest levels due to our professions. My parents were divorced, so I would live with him in the summers in the suburbs of Maryland where he was stationed. As is the usual parent/child dynamic, we did not have a whole lot in common. But the one thing we shared was a love for the outdoors and camping. When I came to live for the summers, we would spend as much time as possible shooting, fishing, and kayaking, and would end the summer with a big week-long camping trip to his property in the Allegheny Mountains of northwest Maryland. This is a very remote property that butts directly against a state park on the front side and a lake shared by the surrounding landowners on the back side. Restrictions were put in place decades ago to prevent the private landowners from overdeveloping the mountain and diminishing the beauty. Most of the residents here are not year-round, and many of the cabins are for summer retreats or vacation homes. This is definitely an old-growth forest with large sections of it so dense in the summers it is almost impossible to walk through without established paths or large game trails. And as you are well aware, this leads to a constant ambient background noise of tree movement, things falling randomly around you, etc. His property was completely undeveloped, with even the gravel driveway leading to was completely overtaken by nature years ago. There was no running water, electricity, or modern conveniences, so the camping was completely primitive, and we loved it that way. There was an abundance of wildlife in the area and a very healthy black bear population. And with the proper precautions and camp etiquette, they were never a problem for us. We knew the area well and were never faced with a predicament that made us feel uncomfortable or fear for our safety until this event. We were asleep in our cots in the tent when my dad's dog began growling and was trying to crawl under one of us to hide. This woke both of us up, obviously, and we quietly tried to calm him down and listen to what could have had him all keyed up. He was most likely a herd of deer passing through, and he could hear the footfalls, or maybe even a bear skirting the camp and visiting the lake. That was what we both expected. We have even had a small mouse jump through camp like little kangaroos, or small mice jump through camp like little kangaroos trying to get around the fire pit, which makes more noise than you would think. But no. Instead, we heard a screaming / shrieking sound that is stuck into my mind 2 decades later. It was a high-pitched and incredibly loud, and came in successive bursts of 3 or 4 shrieks at a time, and was so close and loud that we were not even sure where it was coming from. And this was followed by loud stomping noises and the sounds of brush moving around and sticks whipping and falling. I can only describe it as something running at full speed through the pitch-black forest with no regard for the low-hanging branches and brush. It was big, and we could hear the footfalls, so that immediately ruled out any deer or other prey animals. It was just too dense sounding. We could hear it running into trees, and the sound of it stepping onto the deadfall around us, causing the smaller trees to seesaw and hit the ground. The screaming sounds and disturbances moved in and out, seeming to circle the camp, and whatever it was had the dog freaked out. He buried himself under our baggage on the floor and would not move for anything, letting out these pathetic little half-hearted growls. I have no idea how long this whole ordeal lasted, but that was the first time in my life I witnessed my dad afraid of something. Even without any light, I could feel the palpable sense of fear in our tent, and I was completely paralyzed between a young teen trying to be as brave as possible and a young kid that just wanted to burrow into my sleeping bag and cover my head until it all went away. He was trying to reassure me and keep me calm, but I knew that he was on high alert, preparing for anything to happen. I knew he brought a firearm with him on those trips just in case, but he kept it locked up in the truck about 10 feet from the tent, and there's no way in hell either one of us was going to open that zipper door. The screaming eventually stopped, and we could hear the movement as it turned and moved away from camp. The next morning, we looked around, but we could not find anything, and the whole mood of the trip had changed completely. The explanation that my dad gave me that morning was that an owl had been moving through the property trying to scare off a herd of deer, and my mind grabbed onto that explanation as a completely plausible one. I was desperate for an answer, and it made enough sense. We ended that trip a couple days earlier than planned, blaming it on the frequent rain showers throughout the days, but we both knew the other just wanted to get the F out of there and just needed an excuse. We had a couple shorter trips over the next 2 years, but it was never the same after that, and the camping trips just stopped by the time I was 16 or so. Now, flash forward about 5 years, and I am on active duty and stationed at the same base he retired from, same squadron as well. And I decided to take a coworker and the wives up to my dad's property for some heavy drinking and camping. My coworker was originally from Los Angeles, so this is a fairly new experience for both him and his wife, and I wanted to make the trip great for both of them. But the memory of that experience was ever present as I made sure to keep my Mossberg loaded up with buckshot and in the tent just in case. The first night was uneventful, and we all got hammered by the fire telling stories and joking around before going to bed. And the second night was much like the first, but less drinking due to the hangovers. And we went to bed a little earlier. And sometime after midnight, I was woken out of a deep sleep by something. And I checked around, and both my wife and dog were sound asleep, and all was quiet in the other tent. And as I lay back down and almost fell asleep, I heard 3 distinct cracks against a tree that reverberated through the forest and had my ass up and grabbing the gun case. It sounded so close. And I did not bother being quiet, so needless to say, my racking a shell and stumbling around with a flashlight and shotgun had everyone waking up, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. I shined the light to where I heard it, and saw a set of eyes shining back from a group of smaller trees about 50 yards away from the camp. They were front-facing and large, but only 4 or so feet off the ground. I looked away to tell my friend what was going on, and when I looked back, there was nothing there, and no noise of anything running away. He grabbed his Glock 19 and a light, and we did a quick perimeter search just to make sure everything was clear, and the wives were happy, and chalked it up to a large deer or bear the next morning. I even told them the story about the screech owl that tore through camp and scared the shit out of me as a kid years before in the same spot, but never put the two together until I started listening to the stories from the others on your channel. I thank you for what you're doing. It's helped me greatly, and I've stopped lying to myself about what really happened and is happening to so many others. Right on. Well, I'm super stoked you wrote into us, man. And I'm super, super stoked what this place has done for you. That's good news. Those damned owls, huh? Scaring deer like that and scaring everybody? Just kidding. You know what it was. And so do we. You know what it was, and so do we. Man, I feel weak right now. Shit, I hate that feeling. Feel kick-ass strong and well-rested for so many days, and then all of a sudden, done like dinner. I'll be better tomorrow. This next email, no title, and it starts off, "Hey Steve, thanks for all you do. I feel that I was brought to your channel for a reason. I know it sounds weird, but I feel it's true. Have you and blank blank ever hooked up? Yeah, once. Maybe you have. I sent him this one as well. My encounter/event was many years ago. Happened around 1978. So, I would have been 12 or 13 at the time, as I am now 55. My father was a bird hunter and fisherman from northern Utah/southern Idaho. So I did grow up outdoors and was blessed to go on, excuse me, and share with my pops many trips to fish Alaska for salmon, sea run Arctic char, giant rainbows, halibut, etc. Oh, that's awesome. I've seen some grizzly from a safe distance or with a guide that had a firepower or buzzing them from a float plane, and had a bull moose push through some timber while I was taking a piss outside a log cabin by Lake Liamna, waiting to fly out the next day for ridiculous rainbow trout fishing. It scared the shit out of me. Huff, huff. My pecker was tagged by the mosquitoes as that was the one place that did not have DEET as I staggered backwards. Thank you for that detail. My dad and his friends had a good laugh about that, as I do now as well. I give more background as to boring me later if you want, but I'm just a surfer raising my family as best I can and life is good. Okay, I just kind of want to get this out. I was on a 50-miler Boy Scout trip in the Hetchy Wilderness, northwest Yosemite. My second one, the other being in Desolation Wilderness the prior year. In a nutshell, we had stopped the 50-mile event on day 3 of a 6-day hike around LeConte Point and Rancheria. People were coming down from the high country so mosquito bitten that they looked like lepers. They talked with scout masters and suggested that it was pretty out of control and that we should rethink our route. So we, the scout leaders, decided to go off trail and found a very cool camp area, not designated, that allowed us to do daily hikes down to where the Tuolumne River poured into Hetchy. Kind of sketchy in places to get down there, and when I think back, now that I have kids, it was wild how free we were and unsupervised. But it was a long time ago. But the fishing was so good, and the area we found to set up our tents was pretty special, and we hiked all over every day. That the leaders, 2 to 3, decided to just spend our trip here for a few days and then hike back the way we came instead of the loop that was planned. Okay, on to the event. On the 4th or 5th afternoon, not exactly sure, after I had caught a nice 3 or 4 fat rainbow trout, as had some of the other scouts, I left them cleaned on a stringer in the ice-cold river that entered the reservoir. We decided we would bring them back up to our spot, 150 to 200 yards maybe, up through fairly wild timber and boulders, steep, and have them for lunch the next day. We already had lots of trout to eat for dinner from that morning. And anyway, that night we did a snipe hunt with the Greenhorn Scouts and made a racket and had a blast. 8 crashed as only young teens can do after another day of ridiculous activity, so spent. So to give you the layout of our cool camping area, we had found an area way off trail, halfway between the trail and the headwaters of Hetchy, found because we were looking for a way to get down to where the Tuolumne River entered the reservoir. As I mentioned earlier, it was fairly flat, broken up by giant car-sized and bigger boulders, as well as giant timber. So our group of 8 to 10 scouts could pick a spot to set up their tube tent. Do you know / remember what those are? Basically a tube of plastic, and one would fix a string rope between the 2 trees, etc., through the tent and put a big rock or stake on each corner to make a tent. Classic. Both ends open at all times. So, I had set mine up about 40 feet from the main campfire in a nice flat area between two large pine trees and was sacked out. We were all pretty spread out, each scout claiming his spot was the best, and I have no idea what time it was, other than late. But I was woken up by the sounds of walking, crunching, etc. The fire was 90% out, so a flicker coming through the side of my tube tent. I just assumed it was a Boy Scout master/leader, as it was slow walking, bipedal, and heavy sounding. Not some 12-year-old kid that had to pee. Plodding, slow, weird. Okay, so I'm so tired too, but I sit up and lean out the foot side opening of my tent and look to my left, and about 20 feet away, maybe more, maybe less, at another scout's tent, there is a massive creature thing right at the end of the tent on all fours with its head in the tent. It's hard to type now, kind of emotional. I saw a giant effing thing. So I was thinking a bull. Not even thinking bear. For sure not thinking Bigfoot at all, but I did know a bit about it through TV, etc. Trying to take it in, figure it out, not scared, curious. I was thinking of yelling to warn the scout who was snoring lightly in the tent, but thought that might be a mistake and ramp up the situation. I was so tired looking at this thing, then thinking, how's a bull moose on his elbows? Why is it rocking back and forth slightly? And it has no hooves, but looks like feet. And I see pads, or like a person. Chest is thick. It looks like a ball, but has a waist. Hey, just so you know, Sarah's out on the deck talking to her brother on the phone, and the wind's blowing something on the roof of this building. If you can hear that background sound, nothing I can do about it. Sorry. Why is it rocking back and forth slightly? And it has no hooves, but looks like feet? I see pads. Or like a person? Chest is so thick, it looks like a bull, but has a waist? Hair was dark brown like a cow's, but 2 to 3 inches long and neat. Like bulls/cows I'd seen, but really giant. 6 foot thick at the chest. What the F is this? While all of these thoughts are going through my sleepy mind, I look straight out where my feet were pointing, where one of the Scoutmaster's tent was, a firefighter from Oakland, California, true outdoorsman, had an actual tent, haha. A man I respected and admired, and so bummed I can't remember his name. I asked my parents, and they know exactly who he is, but can't remember either. I could figure it out if I tried hard enough. And he had his face out of the flap that was unzipped. We locked eyes. I think I was smiling, and he gave me a shh sign by putting his index finger to his lips and did a very subtle point that indicated get back in our tents, like gesturing over his shoulder ever so slightly to go back in. So I did. What was strange to me is I fell right back asleep. Crap. I lose sleep over that night to this very day. So the next morning I wake up and immediately feel like talking about what I saw. I want to run to my friends, and the leader/firefighter calls me over. The kids are just starting to stir, and we go for a very short walk away from campsite, and I'm all, what was that? That was crazy, blah, blah, blah. And he puts his hand on my shoulders, looks me in the eyes and smiles and says, good thing we did not scare that bear. I'm sure he saw my confused face and immediately said, it was a bear? And I'm sure he saw my confused face and immediately said, it was a bear. And let's not tell the other scouts, as it will make them uncomfortable and scare them. And I said, okay. And that was that. And that day we went down to the lake, and all the trout on my stringer were gone, and only the heads were left. Not tore up, not on the bank, and I was told by the same leader that bears ate them. Maybe, but very, very well-behaved bears. So neat. The rest of the trip was uneventful but fun, and I did not think about what I had experienced for many years and years until it just kept coming back into my memory. And when I finally told my parents about it this year, both in their 80s, they asked why I had not mentioned it. Shit, this is the only time I've ever put it down in words. I just recently wrote it down and used some of that to timeline this email. I've only mentioned it recently, passing to my wife and daughters to the expected ridicule. I did step up and and shut them down, as we had a great family relationship and they understood that I'm serious, and that is all. I think someone would ask if I thought that scoutmaster / firefighter might have known what that was that we saw. And I have to think that yes, he effing must have. Or why would you let a bear poke its head into a tent of a 12-year-old boy? A massive 800-pound bear with feet and elbows, for shit's sake. And just indicate, yeah, let's get back to bed. He should have freaked out and been screaming, etc., right? He could have had a kid or kids killed on his or the other leader's watch. And one thing I found interesting, when talking to my mom just a month or so ago about this encounter, I cried. Just as I lost the cell connection, and I'm happy with that. She said that when I got back from this particular 50-miler, that was when I dropped off. I sat on the steps of the garage that led into her house and cried, and she sat there and cried right along with me. I do not remember all that at all. Whew, I gotta have a beer. Peace, brother, and thanks. Crap, F it. You can use my name. Just don't share my number or email. Orlo Jones, California. Orlo, sir, absolutely appreciate you sending that email to us to share it with all the people here. And you know what? I wonder, well, I guess he probably isn't. Who knows? But if those scout leaders, firefighters, still alive, I wonder, huh? And I wonder if he's here listening. You wouldn't think it'd be too hard to figure who that dude was to get a hold of him. But whatever. If he knows, he knows, right? If he doesn't, he doesn't. But it sounds like he did. Like you said, you're a scout leader and there's a bear in camp, you're not going back to bed. Right? 6 feet thick. Holy shit. Crazy. Anyways, there you go. Shared some emails. At least I did that today. Man, being honking in the toilets. I hate throwing up. 2 things I hate. I don't know why. I hate sneezing. Like, it actually makes me angry when I sneeze. Just I hate it. I hate throwing up. Oh, I hate throwing up. I'm shitty at it. I hate it. I rarely throw up. That sucks. But anyway, ate a bunch of fruit. It's a fresh water. It's staying down pretty good. So tomorrow should be right back on track. And I'll be back tomorrow. Share my story at howtohunt.com. Get a share it, all right? Get a share. Get it off your chest.